Say, Alien George, our invasion seems to be going swimmingly.
Yes, Alien Joe. We've taken out most of their governments and military infrastructure, which was stupidly all designed to be fighting each other anyway. We could have probably just waited a century and saved on whatever space fuel powers our technology.
Yeah, I wish all the planets we've ravaged had populations as dense as this.
Hey, what's that on the radar? Why is a lone fighter craft returning to the mothership when it would have been launched from one of our dozens of carrier ships?
I don't know, its ID code isn't registered as being involved in this invasion. The database says it was a scout that was lost almost exactly 52 Earth years ago.
And our super highly advanced sensor arrays detect a radiological signature, similar to what we detected when the humans launched that fission weapon at us.
What are the odds that this is a perfectly normal occurrence and not at all an attempt to destroy the mothership?
I'd say low, Alien Joe. Very, very low.
Blow it out of the sky?
Yep.
Threat neutralized.
Yeah. Fuck their movie. Let's get some grub.
Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast that always asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaka. And today we're discussing Independence Day from 1996 and some historical context. This should be dropping the week of July 4th. So happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
And also happy birthday to Kit, because July 2nd is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Kit.
But first, podcasty stuff. We're excited to announce that we've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. We joined because we care about the safety and well-being of our community members. If you feel our behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help us make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work, so if you have skills you think would be helpful, or time and a desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even if they are just ridiculously hell-bent on using nuclear weapons, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod.
Okay, George, now take us back to 1996.
And that's the way it was.
The only planet we know of with technology producing life is this one. Some years are worse than others when it comes to our efforts to explore our planetary neighborhood and peer into the vast reaches of outer space. 1999 was one of those worse years. Joe, give us the headline from the Courier of Waterloo, Iowa.
NASA endures a year described as a fine mess.
What makes a bad year at NASA? Other than people dying fiery deaths? Crashing a $125 million probe into Mars because you mixed up your imperial and metric units. Having the Hubble Space Telescope go to sleep because 3 of its 4 gyroscopes have failed. Having an $80 million astronomy satellite leak all its fuel and become useless. Your space shuttle has to keep going into the shop for repairs and not getting into space enough. And having the air in your International Space Station make your astronauts visiting it sick.
How would the air make them sick?
Yeah, good question, Joe. It seems like that would be hard to do. Until it's not.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe the toilet backed up.
Maybe. There's more, but NASA's problems weren't limited to its mission. Its funding and staffing took hits, losing over 1,600 full-time scientists and engineers under 55 years old over 7 years, and its share of the federal budget dropped from 0.9% to 0.77%.
Wow.
By 1999, NASA was coordinating with other nations and even private entities. Joe, give us another headline from the Courier of Waterloo, Iowa.
You really like Waterloo, Iowa.
It had a couple of good stories in it.
Okay. Mars polar lander will eavesdrop on Red Planet.
The Planetary Society, co-founded by Carl Sagan, spent less than $50,000 to install a $15 microphone on the light detection and ranging device, which was designed by the Russian Space Institute to be included on NASA's Mars polar lander. The microphone was simply to pick up 10-second sound clips from Mars, whatever those sound clips would be, to foster public interest in space exploration. That didn't work because, like the Mars Climate Orbiter, the polar lander crashed into the surface of Mars in 1999.
And I'm going to put this out there. There's really nothing to hear on Mars.
That's not true.
What? Volcanoes? What do you hear?
It wasn't until the Curiosity, or maybe the Opportunity, one of those, but they did send back sounds from Mars. Like there's the sound of Earth,
silence,
like Earth shifting. There's the sound of wind.
Okay, do you get the sound of wind on Mars? This is really.
I mean, it's slightly different because it's a lower atmospheric pressure, so it's weird. It's odd. But yeah, so that's some space news from 1999. It wasn't going great for us.
Thank you, George.
All right, Joe. Tell us about Independence Day.
I will do that. This was written and directed by Roland Emmerich. Both George and I had seen his work in The Day After Tomorrow.
A different apocalyptic movie.
Another apocalyptic movie, yes. I guess he was going through a phase. It was also written by Dean Devlin.
And I've seen his work in Stargate.
Indeed you did.
He's got a very DC Comics name.
Dean Devlin? Well, yeah, just a comic book name in general. They always had to have a alliterative names, at least back in the day. Anyway, here are the blurbs. IMDb says, the aliens are coming and their goal is to invade and destroy Earth. Finding superior technology, mankind's best weapon is the will to survive.
I mean,
you're in the military. Is the will to survive really the best weapon?
I mean, it's not the best weapon. You kind of need that.
I guess.
But their goal wasn't to really destroy Earth. Their goal was to consume all of Earth's natural resources. That would end up destroying Earth as we know it, but the semantic difference.
YouTube says director Roland Emmerich and producer Dean Devlin joined forces with an all-star cast that includes Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, and Bill Pullman. When powerful aliens launch an all-out invasion, the world's only hope lies in uniting for one last strike to save mankind.
All right.
Okay.
That's better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Didn't really need all the cast and the director, but all right.
But that's a common complaint we have about blurbs.
And some of the characters we will discuss are President Thomas J. Whitmore. He is played by Bill Pullman. For the show, we've seen him in Spaceballs and A League of Their Own. And I've seen his work in Lost Highway, The Equalizer 2, The Last Seduction, The Accidental Tourist, and Ruthless People.
And I've seen him in Sleepless in Seattle, Wyatt Earp, Lake Placid, and heard him in Titan AE.
Captain Steve Heller is played by Will Smith, a man who will slap you at the Academy Awards. But we've also seen his work for the show in Bad Boys. And both George and I see him in Men in Black 2, and Wild Wild West. Whereas I've just seen him in 7 Pounds, Emancipation, King Richard, Ali, and 6 Degrees of Separation.
And I've seen him in Jersey Girl, I, Robot, and I Am Legend.
David Levison is played by Jeff Goldblum. For the show, we've seen him in Jurassic Park, Deep Cover, and Earth Girls Are Easy. And we've both seen him in Thor Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy. And I've seen him in The Fly, Asteroid City, The Great White Hype, The Player, The Big Chill, Thank God It's Friday, first film I think I've seen him in, Death Wish, 1974, which also may have been the first film I've seen him in. I don't know which one it was. Probably it's Thank God It's Friday. I don't think I was allowed to see Death Wish in 1974 as a, 8-year-old? And Silverado.
And I've heard him in The Isle of Dogs.
Marilyn Whitmore is played by Mary McDonnell, and for the show, we've seen her in Dances with Wolves and Madawan. And we've both seen her in Donnie Darko, and I've seen her in Passion Fish.
And I've seen her as President Laura Roslin in the 2000s reboot of Battlestar Galactica. This is the second thing that I know her from where she plays somebody in politics, and there's a character named Boomer.
Oh, Yeah, sure. But here she's first lady.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of a step down from president. Anyway, Julius Leveson is...
Her run as president was because everybody in the government was killed and she was the Secretary of Education and she was the next in line.
Ah, so Jesus, even in fantasy, we can't elect a woman. Great. Anyway.
In fact, she does get not voted. Like, she loses an election and then steals the presidency back, basically. She never actually gets elected president, even though there's a chance to do that.
How realistic. Anyway, Julius Leveson is played by Judd Hirsch, and I've seen him in The Fabelmans, Uncut Gems, Serpico, and the TV show Taxi.
And I've seen him in A Beautiful Mind.
Constance Spano is played by Margaret Collin, and for the show we've seen her in Unfaithful, 3 Men and a Baby, and Pretty in Pink. And I've seen her in Amos and Andrew, easily one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. Marty Gilbert is played by Harvey Fierstein, and I've seen him in Bullets Over Broadway and Bros.
And I've seen him in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Jasmine Dubrow is played by Vivica A. Fox, and she is a fox.
She is a fox.
And we've both seen her in Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2, and I've seen her in Set It Off and Not Another Church Movie. And finally, Patricia Whitmore is played by Mae Whitman. She's the little girl.
Yeah.
So, as you may have noticed, listener, we've been making some changes to the show. We're trying out different stuff and seeing what sticks. Please let us know what you like and what you don't like. For today's episode, rather than break down scene by scene this movie, we're going to talk about different aspects of it. As you may be aware, George and I are infested by the woke mind virus. In human speak, that means we actually care about other people. In human speak, that means we actually care about people other than ourselves. We do not think empathy is the fundamental weakness of Western civilization. In fact, we believe millions of people would not have died if Western civilization had more empathy, not less. So, with that in mind, we're going to look at Independence Day through that lens. But don't worry, we're still going to declare if the film still works at the end. George, let's start with military service, something you know very well.
Alrighty.
I did a quick internet search, and I was told there are women pilots in this film, but I don't remember any of them. And for sure, if women are there, they aren't the lead. The military appears to be old dude. So, my question, George, does that seem accurate to you? And also, what do you think of the women in this film?
Does what seem accurate to me?
That there just be no women there. Or if there was a woman, did you see one? Because I don't remember any ladies at all.
I don't remember seeing any in the movie. But I don't know when women pilots started in the Air Force. So
there had to be some in 1996, I would imagine. Especially,
I don't know, Joe. This seems like something we can Google. Women began entering Air Force fighter pilot training in 1993. So 7 years later, I wouldn't necessarily expect there to be many women flying fighter planes.
Let's be honest here. This is not a documentary. It wouldn't have killed.
Okay, then it doesn't matter, Joe. If you're what?
My point is, there should have been women there. I'm sorry that upsets you. I know
it doesn't upset me, but like you're saying, oh, there should have been women there. Oh, but it's not a documentary, so we can't. I'm
just simply saying.
So you can't have it both ways, Joe.
Why is it both ways?
You're criticizing it for not matching reality, but you're dismissing the reality as being irrelevant to it.
In the reality, that still wouldn't be an excuse. But at least they could say, hey, we didn't really have women, but I don't think that's even an excuse, even if it was the case. But who said
that? Like, did this movie say we have women fighter pilots? Like, who told you that? You said you were told. Who told you?
I looked it up. Apparently there are women supposed to be in these scenes, but I did not see one.
Where did you find that? Maybe that source's shit. It sounds more like the source's shit.
Okay, calm down. Calm down. Take a breath. All right, you good?
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm fine.
Right. And what do you think of the women in this film? And try and express yourself without yelling at me.
They're pretty. I think that Jasmine has pretty nice apartment for an exotic dancer.
That's seems more like a house to me than an apartment, isn't it?
Sure, it might be a house. But, I mean, she's making good money doing that because he's not paying for it. He lives on base.
No, and she's got a kid too, so.
Yeah. I think she must be a talented dancer.
Very popular for sure.
The women in this seem to have roles. Like, I don't see any Manic Pixie Dream Girls in this.
There's no Manic Pixie Dream Girls, but I don't think the women have very much to do. They mostly exist as the girlfriend or wife.
Yeah, romantic interests of the men.
Yeah.
But they have more of a life of their own than most women in movies in that role do.
Not enough for my taste. All right. Oh, by the way, this is minor, and no pun intended, but since we're speaking of women, the president's daughter, why does he take her practically everywhere he goes? He takes her to Area 51. He takes her to pick up Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum after they blow up the mothership. How the hell does anyone know it's still safe? They still don't know what tech might still be functioning in that crash. But not only does the president have no armed escort, he brings along his kid? What the fuck?
So, of course he took his kid with him when he evacuated.
Sure, okay.
And from there wasn't a chance to do anything else until they landed at Area 51. Like, they were on that plane until Area 51. So that's how he brought her there, because she was with him when he left.
He literally takes her into he didn't have to take her in there. He could have somebody wait here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Leave her outside with a stranger while there's
He's the president. He should have security, some sort of security. That's just random strangers. He has
he thinks his wife is dead. He might want his daughter with him because he feels like his world is falling apart. I could think of 1,000 reasons why he would just keep his daughter close to him, because you feel like you're the best person to keep an eye on them. At this point, you don't trust anyone else to because the world is falling apart.
But you're taking her into what could potentially be a very dangerous situation. You don't know what's happening.
The entire world is a very dangerous situation at that point. The entire world. If you leave her outside, that's dangerous too. Because the aliens are like... They even do that in the movie. They come after Area 51.
So he takes her further than Alien 51. Okay. Staying with representation. You're going to be the defender of this film, I say. Okay, I see where this is going. Staying in the realm of representation, what do you think was up with Judd Hirsch and his very, very Jew-faced performance? If you remember, we dragged Boys of Brazil because Laurence Olivier really turned up the Jewishness in that one. But isn't this way worse? I know we live in a world where both the richest man in the world and Steve Bannon can do Nazi salutes, and the Anti-Defamation League doesn't give a shit. But why is this performance not widely questionable?
Well, number one, he's Jewish.
So
it's not Jew face if you're a Jew playing a Jew.
Yes, it can be. I can put on blackface. I'm still putting on a blackface.
But he's not putting on a face. He's just wearing his face. He's a Jew.
Do you know what Jew face and blackface are?
They're caricatures at their core.
Right.
He's not a caricature. He's just a Jewish guy. He's a guy who has he's a Jewish guy who's lost his faith after his wife. So he's a very stereotypical, like, temporary atheist in that sense. But, like, people hold to their, like, rediscover their faith in times of, like, trouble. I don't find that weird at all.
It's not his faith that I'm objecting to. I'm like, hey, I went down to the store. I went down. Oh, you were he got a shot in the back of very sad. Oh my God. It really just, I don't know how the director told him. I would love to know what the direction was to Judge, because it'd be one thing if Judge Hirsch actually talked this way. If this is Jackie Mason, okay. It's not. No, he doesn't speak like this. So, like, why is he talking this way? It is so caricature. I'm just shocked. And apparently, even you, like, it's fine, whatever. I don't know. Really, really overdone. Over the top. Very, very, too much to my taste. Too much.
All right, let's look up what the Jewish response to this movie was. Because I can't speak for fucking Jews. Like, that's not something I can do.
I'm thinking as a person who doesn't believe in bigotry, George. Perhaps you should try that.
I am not in. I don't need... Oh, subscribe. No, fuck you. I'm not subscribing to your newsletter to read that.
People didn't object to Laurence Olivier, which is still wild to me. And as a friend of mine who's Jewish, she's like, no, it was good. Oh, all right.
All right. Yeah, I'm not seeing any, like, outcry about it.
That doesn't mean it's right.
Okay.
Moving on. So we disagree on that. What do you think of Jeff Goldblum's boss, played by Harvey Firestein?
I think he dies too quickly.
Huh?
I think he dies too quickly.
I think he may be the only gay representation in the flick. Even though it's not clear that his character is playing a gay man. I only say that because I know who Harvey Firestein is.
Okay.
I don't know if his character is supposed to be gay or not, but I remember when I read the reviews of this in the Village Voice years ago, obviously 1996, and it was pointed out like, oh, great, they kill off the one gay guy. But again, I don't know. Technically, I don't know.
They killed off most of the people in all the major cities.
It's true, but we don't get to see them. And we're going to talk about the deaths. That's another thing I want to discuss. But let's move on. Since do you have any feelings about Harvey Firestein?
No. He died.
All right. And what did you think of Harry Clark Jr. and when he appears to be proposing to Will Smith? Was that homophobic? Because I saw that I did see someone describe as homophobic just in passing. They were talking.
I could see it being being read that way, like the positional humor of it. So to set the scene, right? Harry Connick Jr. is describing a butt. So he drops down to one knee behind Will Smith, and he's sort of motioning around Will Smith's butt, and then he ends up holding the ring that Will Smith's character is going to use to propose, and he's holding up. He's like, which the thing about that scene that pissed me off is because he holds it up and says, and I quote, "This is a wedding ring." No, it's an engagement ring, you fucking moron. You do that before you get married. So, and then somebody walks by, and the implication is,
I'm sorry, George. Sorry, George, into the mic. Oh,
ha ha ha. He looks gay because he's proposing to Will Smith. Not the best joke. But I wouldn't call it like wildly homophobic. It's casually homophobic.
I think casually, yeah, I wouldn't call it wildly homophobic. I'm not even sure if I can call it homophobic, but I know some people brought that up. And it is obviously played for laughs. And again, there's no gay representation. It'd be one thing if there was a gay person who's also fired a jet, maybe that'd be acceptable. Since they're invisible, unless they become Harvey Firestein who gets killed, then it's just there's a joke. Ha ha ha. Can you imagine guys getting married? Isn't that hilarious? Okay, let's discuss the science. I looked it up, and if a spacecraft the size of Manhattan came down from the heavens, it would cause some serious damage just by being there in the air. The beings wouldn't need to fire a shot. Do you know some of the downsides that would happen?
I can't see any upsides to a giant alien craft that wants to wipe out your species. But I mean, so it's all downsides. What mechanism is it just being there? Like, what is the mechanism of damage that would be causing?
Well, I looked it up. It said air pressure disruption, air pressure and wind. The displacement of air by the massive object will cause major windstorms, possibly hurricane force gusts, especially during arrival or hovering. Think of a giant piston compressing the atmosphere.
I think that's bullshit. That sounds really garbage.
Okay.
Because that craft, whatever technology they're using to levitate that craft, right? It's not using turbines and engines. It's not using that kind of propulsion. So it's not going to be causing those things by just existing any more than a mountain sitting there existing still in the air. Like,
the mountain isn't over us.
So what?
It is different.
It's
you don't think
just mass in the atmosphere. The air will go around it. That's all. Like, there's going to be pressure above it, and then that pressure gets transmitted through the fluid. Like, it's not going to disrupt much just by existing. And if it shows up slowly enough, it's not going to be, because you know, like, when you're on a subway platform, when a train is coming, you can feel the air before the train gets there. Right? You've experienced that?
I don't know what you're talking about. Sure.
So, like, something moving at speed will be displacing air if it's in, like, a closed system. But your atmosphere isn't a closed system. There's some place for the air to go. So it'll do that. And these things weren't moving super fast. They were just sort of rolling on in there. Like,
well, this caused a fire as they were coming into the atmosphere, if you remember. The first people who die get burnt up by the atmosphere.
I don't know that was heat of entry, or if that was a thing they were doing to disguise themselves and keep things from getting too close. I could see a utility of having an explosive, like, fiery thing around you to keep all the biological shit that might be trying to stop you from getting to you until you have time to, like, settle in and deploy your weapon.
How about this? The craft would cast a shadow over the entire city, plunging it into darkness. The psychological and practical effects will be dramatic. Traffic accidents, which is kind of shown in the film, panic, plants losing photosynthesis, and sun drops in temperature.
The craft is there for 2 days. If you forget to move your plants to the window and they're dead in 2 days, you're doing something else to your plants. Like, it would take time for the heat in the fucking concrete to dissipate. The heat, like, a city is a giant heat sink. It's not going to cool off that quickly. We know this because we live in them. And they get hot. So if it's like the middle of the summer, no, it's not going to start freezing overnight. Like yes, it's going to cause panic. Absolutely.
Well, that it shows in a picture to me.
And it shows that.
Okay, moving on. How dumb do you find the idea of them uploading a virus into an alien spacecraft? For that matter, how dumb do you find Will Smith knowing how to pilot one?
These were two of the largest stretches in cinematic history. I'll fly it. I got chased by one, so I know what it's capable of.
And they all go along with that. That's a
Grade A bullshit. Just pièce de resistance bullshit. And Jeff Goldblum's character, his father tells him, get off the floor, you're going to catch a cold. Cold? A virus? I'm going to give them a virus. Dad, you had a fantastic idea. No, you fucking moron. It was not your dad's idea. Your dad was misunderstanding the mechanisms by which viruses are transmitted. At best. Because you don't catch a cold from sitting on a floor or being cold. You catch it cold because it is a rhinovirus, and when it's cold, people cluster and start coughing on each other. That's why you catch colds when it's cold. So, on top of the bad attribution of origin of that idea, what fucking programming language is the alien craft using, you goddamn fucking idiot?
Well, presumably he's using what from the 1950s aircraft. That's how he knows what to use for theirs, I presume. I guess that's the answer.
They weren't able to power on that aircraft until the mothership came into the area and everything started powering on. I don't know how they deciphered the alien programming language that more than likely isn't going to be using binary logic the way our computers do. Because they need things that travel, interstellar distances at probably super relativistic speeds and shit. So I doubt that their computers are using ones and zeros in languages that we can decipher and then write a virus to infect. That they wouldn't have their own fucking antivirus to catch.
Well, that would be my first thought. It's not so much we wouldn't have a virus that could maybe the computers could talk to each other, but if that was the case, surely their advanced technology would have antiviruses in their computer systems. They're coming here to invade a planet. You think they'd have some prep, like, what are the odds? I mean, we know they have computers. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure they can't use their computers to contact ours.
And on top of all of that, I submit as evidence the cold open. Because
that's when they actually get the ship and start flying it. Then you'd like, right, you think they would figure out,
where did this why is this lone fighter craft coming up from the surface where it would have been launched from if it was part of this invasion? Oh, no, we have ways to identify all of our aircraft, and this one we sent as a scout 50 fucking years ago. Oh, it's just coming home now. No, they would have blown it up. They never would have gotten close.
And likely, as advanced as they are, presumably they would be even more advanced than that 1950s aircraft. So they, whatever. Anyway, that probably what this strained the most credulity, I think, for most people. Even people who love the movie, like, okay, That obviously wouldn't happen. How about this? Bill Pullman, as President of the United States, is brave, caring, and loves his family. None of that is true of the guy who currently resides in the White House.
We are recording this in 2025, so Donald Trump is the president. Assuming our podcast, at least even the archives, survive this presidency, know that when Joe says the guy currently occupying, we're talking about now in 2025. Because in the future, we hope, it won't be him anymore.
We hope. Fingers crossed. How fast would Trump make this about himself if aliens actually showed up? And also...
Instantly. Period. There's a zero question about that. He would monetize it until there wasn't humanity left.
Also, this movie makes it seem like the deep state is real. But if there was a deep state, wouldn't the CIA have already overthrown Trump? Or more likely, made sure he was never president in the first place? I know that's not really the point of the movie, but I got to throw political stuff in.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that, Joe. Like,
I
can't map reality onto this one.
Yes, I do. I wish the deep state were real, so we wouldn't be going through this right now.
But I do love the explanation. You don't think they spent $20,000 on a toilet seat, do you? Fucking, nice, solid writing on that.
It's weirdly enough, though, the show West Wing answered that question. Mm-hmm. Not this direct question, but there was a character on who was asking for money for the Navy or whatever, and the president says, why does it cost so much? He's like, we don't have regular toilets on a Navy ship. We don't have regular items that you'll find in a hardware store on our aircraft and our carrier aircraft and blah, blah. It's different. That's why it costs more.
Yeah.
So there is an explanation.
Because at the same time as the government tries to skimp and save money by going with the lowest bidder, you also don't want to skimp on everything. Sometimes you need quality. Yeah,
and again, these are specific items for a specific class of people or customers. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously going to cost more because they're much more limited. If you're giving it to the masses, then yeah, it shouldn't cost that much because lots of people can buy it. But when only a few people are buying it, it's going to cost more. That's the way things usually work. George, people come together to fight an enemy in this movie, a common enemy. But would this happen in real life? We just had a worldwide pandemic, and it made people more selfish and not less. So if aliens showed up, would we really unite?
Maybe. Because the people who unite in this aren't the regular citizenry. The people who unite are the militaries, and they understand the tactical value of doing that. So I think, it is entirely possible that the militaries of the world could come together to fight a common enemy if such a common enemy existed. Until then, we'll keep fucking practicing on ourselves.
So, but that's true. I guess the military isn't what went bananas during the pandemic.
Yeah, no, the military was like, mask up. We're going to start inoculating people left and right.
Yeah. Whereas German Republic was like, no, we're going to put it inside me. It's going to be a little freedom. It's going to track wherever I go and blah, blah. Like they don't have cell phones, for God's sake. It's so, all right.
Yep.
But it's so funny. People who say, I'm worried about being tracked and everyone following me. Don't have a cell phone then. And you don't want to be tracked. That's one way not to do it. Not a virus, not a vaccine, you idiot. Anyway. We never talk about this, but what do you think of the special effects of this picture?
We do talk about this sometimes. In particular, we mention when there are particularly good practical effects, because that really sticks out for us, just having been doing this podcast for 274 episodes. I think the special effects in this were fine. They told the story well. They were not realistic on a bunch of different levels. Like the Capitol dome crumbling like it's made out of rock when it's made out of iron. I don't know. That's not going to happen. FA-18 Hornets didn't have drag chutes. So him launching his drag, he couldn't do that to blind a following aircraft.
Now, the drag chute you're talking about is that parachute thing that comes to the back of its strap, right? Yeah. Yeah.
F-18 Hornets either had an arresting hook to catch on an aircraft carrier cable, or they had dorsal drag fins on their wings to slow down.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the special effects were decent for the time. I think it's worked fine. It's not too distracting. The only thing I thought looked really, truly bad was when the dog is...
Oh my God, terrible.
I'm like, God, that looks fake. That looks really fake.
And the goofs section of IMDb had a field day on that one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because if you had that kind of fireball rushing past that door, it doesn't matter that you're in the door. It's not the flames that kill you. It's the heat.
The heat.
And that heat would still do that. It would, and the fire would also consume all of the available oxygen in that tunnel. Like, you would not be able to breathe. You would just suffocate to death.
Yeah, it made no sense. But I guess they wanted
if you didn't burn.
I guess, but at least it's the only really heroic action of a woman in this entire film. And it's, of course, to save her child.
But she also finds that working truck and then starts pulling together survivors. Okay. Like, she does a little bit of, like, community organizing on that one.
And let me rephrase. She does other good stuff in it. What I meant to say is the only action sequence for a woman in this film is she's the only one's got related. She kicking the door in and going in there. Other than that, it's the women, again, don't have a lot to do. Lots of people die in this movie. Some are more hilarious than others. I laughed after Harry Connick Jr. died, not because of his death, but having Will Smith yell, "Jimmy, no!" Did you find anything unintentionally funny in this picture?
Unintentional? No. Like, there are comedic beats in this movie that are not all Jew-face. Much of it centering around Randy Quaid's character that we never even mentioned in the cast list.
Yes, I think he was relevant.
The crop,
you can bring him up.
The crop duster, the drunk crop duster who was abducted and sexually probed by aliens back in the 70s or some shit. It's supposed to be funny. I don't find any kind of sexual assault funny anymore. So even conspiracy, alien, UFO, sexual assault by aliens, I don't think it's humorous. I don't think it's funny that his townsfolk friends were sort of making jokes about it on the news. Like, I found more problematic things in this than I used to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I didn't really bring him because I didn't think it was pretty important to our discussion. Though obviously, you can bring up any character you want. What does it matter?
I mean, he saves the day. He kamikazes his plane into the main weapon of the alien, which takes down their ship. And then they say, "Hey, tell the rest of the world, get somebody crazy enough to kill themselves on these ships." I mean, I guess they could just shoot a missile up there if anybody had missiles left.
Yeah. Although, well, anyway, how come their shields weren't up?
Because the virus, because...
Oh, right, because of our... Okay,
the alien technology worked such that it was transmission, right? It transmitted power and transmitted shielding somehow. So when they knocked the mothership out, it took down the shields.
Right. I forgot. Yeah, I mean, I remember... It's interesting because when I first saw this, and I saw it originally in the theaters in 1996... I was somewhat teared up by it. And then I look back at it and go like, this character could not be in this picture. It'll be fine. Someone else could have flown up. I mean, I did not care about him. I frankly didn't really care about anybody, which brings me to my next point. Lots of people die in this movie, which I already mentioned before. But what I want to say at this point is like, what do you... Again, in my formative years of film reviewing, if you will, before I even knew I would do something like this, I would read a lot of film reviews, and one of them was from the Village Voice, and I forget who the critic was, but he pointed out that films increasingly would show mass death, and then at the end, everybody's high-fiving at the end, as opposed to any sort of mourning. And he called it the Nazification of filmmaking, because it's really trouble. Because in the earlier parts of film, you had very few deaths. When people die, it usually was emotional or it was the bad guy. But in these cases of films like this, it's just mass death. The president loses his wife. Will Smith loses his best friend. People they know personally as well as just general deaths. And yet, by the end of the film, it's all high five. It's like, shouldn't somebody still be upset? Shouldn't people still be sad? They still lost.
Yeah,
I understand.
People should still be sad, but you can also be happy in the moment that there is not a current, still looming threat.
I got the impression, for me, that the characters forgot any of those people existed by the time the end of the film. It's like those people weren't even there.
Yeah, and movies do that all the fucking time. Because if you really, like, your wife died, you're done. You're done as a character. You are, like, as a president, you are fucking in mourning now. You are traumatized. You are fucked. But you can't do that in the movie. Because you need the movie to keep going. So they just, like, it's not realistic, but also, what else are you going to do when you have that scale of destruction in a movie? I'll talk about Battlestar Galactica for a second. That starts with, like, 12 planets full of human beings, and by the end of it is down to 25,000 people. Because every episode, it starts with the number of people who are still alive. And there's a trial of somebody in it, and it actually addresses that. It's like, there's a scale of tragedy where you talk about how many people have died. Then there's another level of scale of tragedy where you're not talking about that anymore. You're talking about who's left. This movie is a who's left movie. Almost.
Yeah, I guess. Although, you make me think, probably the worst example of this is Star Wars. Where whole planets of people are dead, and yet, what happens to Darth Vader? He gets to go on the good side of the Force. Because what? He saves his son? The fucker is responsible for millions and millions of deaths.
I mean, he didn't just save Luke. He brought balance to the Force by, which I disagree on their use of the word balance. Because you'd think that balance mean you have, like, light and dark that are balanced. Not the dark just consumed itself.
I don't get it. Anyway, finally, what did you like and didn't like about this movie, and do you think it still works?
Doesn't that go into conclusions?
Yeah, we're now.
It's a good action flick. Like, it's a good feel-good movie. I still get goosebumps when he gives his stupid Braveheart speech.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and because I noticed literal goosebumps. I'm like, oh, I still get goosebumps at that. What do you know? So I think it still works. It's a good action flick. As long as you're not, doing what we do, which is analyze things to death.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's not, I mean, I know some people say it's an incredibly stupid movie, which it is.
It is. It can be incredibly stupid, but it's an incredibly stupid, entertaining movie.
And finally, yeah, I mean, the point of this film, it's not trying to be Schindler's List. It's not trying to be profound. It's not trying to be American History X. There's no point to this film other than we want big box office numbers. So let's put all these big stars in it and have all this exciting stuff go on.
Yep.
I mean, I do think it's troubling about the women. I think the Judd Hirsch thing is not great. And I think that should be. But again, I guess I'm in the minority of that because you're like, no one else is complaining about it. I still think it's like, wow. But overall, I'll give it, just a minor, it still works. I mean, if you sit a kid down and watch it, it's going to wash over them. You probably forget it 5 minutes after you've seen it anyway. Yep. It's not a profound film. It's adequate. Yeah, I'll say it still works as well.
All right.
All right, George, what's up next?
Next week is a Patron's Choice episode. And we don't know what that movie will be yet because our patrons vote on them, and that vote hasn't been finalized. If you want to vote, but are not a patron, you can fix that. You really can by becoming a patron at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
Folks, write in. Let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening, indeed. Because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter. Speaking of people hearing things, people who hear this, write in. Let us know
what you think. Yeah, we need some feedback, folks. But be nice, especially to me. I'm very sensitive.
Yes, he's very sensitive, especially in that one spot.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka.
This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.
The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Is it A or A? Oh. For some reason, that was A. Never mind. Cut that whole lot. Anyway.
Okay.
Do that again.
So, from No Stupid Questions. What is the hotel receptionist doing on the computer for 5+ minutes when I check in? From Stupid Questions. If someone is genuinely bad at everything they try. What can they do for a living? From random questions, have you ever given someone a handmade present? From No Stupid Questions, why are you not allowed to lie to the police but the police can lie to you? Back to stupid questions, which this isn't a stupid question. How is it possible for people who don't count calories to maintain a healthy and slim weight? What's the biggest piece of advice you would give your 16-year-old self?